Hello happy campers, my name's Nikki and welcome to Yougo Camping. So today's video we're going to be talking all about the wind, and we mean weather wind, nothing else. So the most important thing to remember when you're camping in the wind is if it has to be that you have to ditch your tent, just do it. No one wants to think about that, but we've had to do it before where the weather just got awful and it was just a case of leave the tent, save everything that you can. It's only happened once, I think, once in the more than 3 decades since I've been camping. But if you need to do it, no one's going to think badly of you. So first top tip, ditch your tent if you do need to. But if you're planning on actually staying in your tent while it's windy, there's a few things you can do to make sure that you're going to have a bit more of a fun time and it's slightly less worrying for you. So one of the most important things to remember is that these tents are tested in wind tunnels. They should really be able to withstand some of the fastest winds. As long as you're not camping in a tornado, you should be okay. But it does matter how you pitch your tent as to whether or not your tent is going to stay up. We've seen some really scary pictures this year of people camping in the different storms that we've had in the UK, and it's been really quite heartbreaking to see people's tents falling down, mainly because they've been pitched badly. So here's a few tips to make sure that your tent stays up in the wind. So one of the first tips is actually a really simple tip, and if you look around the bottom of your tent you'll see that there's quite a few loops, and each one of these should have a peg in it. It's quite simple. Peg every single available part of your tent. If you've got a spare guy rope, peg it out. If you've got a little loop in the floor, peg it out. The more pegs you've got in, the more stable your tent's going to be. If you're camping in really mild weather, like today where there's no wind and it's quite sunny, it's hit and miss whether or not you really need to peg out all of it. I would suggest do it just to get into the habit of it, but we can understand if you don't do it that way. But if you're going to be camping in the wind or if wind's forecast, definitely peg out your tent properly because this will really, really help. When you're looking at pegging out the guy ropes, look at what direction they come from the tent. This will tell you which angle to take it out. If you're going to be camping in high winds, take the guy rope out further so that it's got a lot more of a shallow angle. This will help to peg it to the ground. Tents that have a much shorter guy rope are a lot more likely to take off like a kite in the wind, which is what you don't want to happen. And talking about pegs, we've seen many people try and peg their tent straight down like that, which is not going to work because as soon as the wind happens, it's going to fly out. So imagine this is your ground. If you're going to peg out, make sure you peg at a 45-degree angle so that your guy rope comes in here. That way it can pull against it and there's a lot more space here. So make sure peg in your pegs at a 45-degree angle. And another note on pegs, the ones that you get in your tent are generally not the best pegs in the world. They're perfectly fine for most tents in most weather, but if you know you're going to be camping in really windy weather, we'd actually suggest upgrading your tent pegs. I've got some links below for some better storm pegs that will be much better for you in the wind. Now many of us recently have seen the new air tents. They're really, really cool. We've not tried one personally ourselves because we've got quite a lot of tents that have got lots and lots of different ways of putting them up. But the air tents generally do tend to be slightly better in the wind, just because there's no chance of the poles breaking. That being said, we've also seen quite a few where the winds actually attacked the air poles and they've ripped a hole in it. So it's a bit kind of swings and roundabout with that one. But it might be worth, if you're going to be camping a lot with your family and you know it's going to be quite windy and temperamental weather, to just think about investing in a slightly better tent. An air tent might be the way to go for that one. Now when you're packing down your tent in the wind, this is the point where so many people end up losing tents. We were on a campsite once in Scotland, right at the north coast, right by the sea. And the owner said, when you're packing up, do be careful because we've already lost 3 tents to the sea this season, which was quite scary. So what I'd suggest is try and leave your guy ropes out for as long as possible. That means that you've always got some contact with the ground. If you need to, put something on the parts of your tent that are now flat, so something heavy like a pair of boots, some Wellingtons, or even your cooking stove, just something to weigh it down a little bit before you unpeg it. And when you do go for unpeg it, make sure you've got some help. Have someone stand against the wind so that if it does fly into the wind, it actually just flies into that person instead and they can grab hold of it. It can be a little bit difficult to put a tent down in the wind, so as much as we say try and fold it all nicely and flatten it out, it might just be a case of get it down, roll it up, throw it in the car and sort it out when you get home. In that case, just do that. It's a lot easier. Just popping it in the car, sorting it out when you get home. It's much better that you stay nice and safe and that you can keep your tent for your next adventure. So thanks for tuning in today. I hope those tips are really useful. And if you'd like to have any more tips or if you have any questions, don't forget to leave us a few questions in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell notification, and we will see you next time.